Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are taking a look at kind of a much anticipated figure, but at the same time somewhat a dreaded figure because a lot of people were really psyched, myself included, about Papo making a Giganotosaurus. However, once the figure actually was unveiled to everyone, there weren't too many people that were excited about the pose of the figure, and I think that's definitely something that should be considered when considering buying the figure because not too many people are happy about the tripod pose on this Giganotosaurus. However, I actually say in person, it's definitely a lot more of an appealing figure than I expected it to be. Even with the pose, I think the pose is okay if you take into consideration the fact that the figure is in sort of a diorama-like scene, like a battle or something like that. Then maybe it's okay that you can kind of display it like rearing up as if maybe some sort of a ceratopsian or some very large dinosaur just like kind of took a shot at it or charged at it and now it's kind of jumping back or something to try to dodge the attack or escape it or something along those lines. I really feel like there are plenty of diorama options with this dinosaur, and it's not a total loss as far as like the pose goes. It's really not the best pose if you leave it as a standalone figure, but include it into a diorama, I feel like it could work fairly well. But regardless, I'm really excited to take a closer look at the figure. It's been quite some time since we had a new Papo figure, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Giganotosaurus, you can straight away see that as far as the detailing goes, it is very highly detailed and really actually quite beautiful if you ask me. I am definitely a fan of the head sculpt of this figure, and I think Papo has done a great job as far as sculpting out the really minor details, but also including a beautiful paint job, because up here on the head you can see so many different variations of like grays and browns, giving it just an incredibly realistic look, which is one thing I do love about Papo. Although, if you look at some of their newer figures that were kind of like re-releases of older figures, basically what I'm saying is like the new Papo Standing Rex, if you look at that in comparison to the older one, the paint job is actually really bad. The paint job in comparison to the original run is really a very big difference. You can even see it, especially if you get your hands on a newer one and take a look at the feet. And the paint job on the feet, you can see that there's a very big difference in comparison to the older ones. So I was highly concerned as far as like the paint job goes on these newer figures, but I can definitely say with complete confidence that as far as this one goes, the paint job is really nicely done. Taking a look at the opposing side of the head, same deal over here as far as the sculpt and detail, but also the really nice paintwork. You've got a beautiful nostril sculpted out up there. Very nice detailing there around the eye. The eyes are painted with a yellowish coloration. A black pupil is also included. They are nicely glossed, so they look really nice and very realistic. You can also see kind of a grayish coloration there around the eye, which highlights that eye quite nicely, and I am definitely a fan of that. You can also see kind of like some scoot-like scales here and there showing up. If we open the mouth, of course, the jaw is articulated, and it does move quite nicely, actually. It really does articulate perfectly, and again, you can see the teeth in here. The teeth are all beautifully sculpted, each tooth sculpted individually, which is one thing I can always commend Papo on, is just how good they do as far as really including fine detailing, but also sculpting their teeth out individually. And the teeth are painted pretty nicely for the most part. They don't look sloppy, as far as I can tell, pretty much anywhere. There's actually a very nice paint job done to the teeth, and you can also see some of the detailing there on like the skin flap of the inside of the mouth is nicely painted, given like a wash as well, and painted with kind of like a pinkish coloration. Same deal for the tongue on the inside of the mouth, and the detail actually on the inside of the mouth, you can see right there, is insanely nicely done, even including the throat back there in the far off distance of the inside of the mouth of the Giganotosaurus. So a really nice sculpt and paint job on the inside of the mouth, and just absolutely loaded with very nice detailing. You can see as well a sculpt up here looks beautiful. They've given it kind of like a nice dry brushing to bring some of that detail out quite nicely on the top of the head. Beautiful scaly appearance right here. And as we start to move down into the neck, you can see some scoots and some osteoderms picking up, as well as kind of like some scoots that run along the spine of the Giganotosaurus. You can also see quite a few different variations again of like a nice lighter brown right here, and then darker browns out here, and then even a grayish coloration, and it creates kind of a striping effect that runs down the neck of the Giganotosaurus. Beautiful detailing here in this area with the really nice kind of skin folding due to the dinosaur having its head kind of pushed down like this. It's really scrunching the skin up, and you can see that on the other side here as well. So I think that movement of the dinosaur with the way its head is kind of turned and bent in a really dramatic fashion is actually nicely shown as far as the way the skin would be reacting to that and kind of squishing the skin up right there. That's nicely done. You have some more nice skin detail right here in the throat as well. I kind of hope they release another Giganotosaurus in a more natural pose that kind of maybe even similar to like the Acrocanthosaurus they released, where it's kind of crouching down a little bit and maybe about to snap up at this one. And that would really look cool as far as like display options go if you just had kind of like two rival Giganotosaurus maybe going at it. As you continue to move down the body, the skin texture looks phenomenal, honestly. You have nice like ridges that run along the spinal column, and then again some more of those osteoderm-like scoots right there. Very nice shoulder blade protruding from the skin. Again, the skin texture looks great right there as well. As you move out into the arm, you can see some nice muscle tone to the arm. Beautiful scoots that run down the fingers, and the hand sculpt does look really nice, also beautifully painted. The nails are also painted quite nicely, kind of given a dry brushing over top of the nails to elaborate them a bit. Beautiful sculpt here on the inside of the arm, even on the inside of the hand. That really does look quite nice there as well. As you move here into the stomach region, you can take note to the rib cage of the dinosaur. And again, so much paint variation, which is one thing I always love about Papo, is just how realistic their paint jobs look. They do a great job of choosing the tones of color, but also the actual application of the paint. It's always so nicely done for the most part, especially if you get your figure early and you get that initial original run, because I feel like the original run of each of the figures always looks the best. Beautiful skin folding and skin wrinkling going on right here in the stomach region. As we move here into the leg, you can see some beautiful skin detail with the way the skin is reacting to the leg movement right there, as well as the hip bone. Nice muscle tone as we move down into the leg, and again, so much color variation, which I absolutely love about this figure. You can also see the kneecap is present right there, as well as a really nice and very large bulging calf muscle. As we move down into the foot sculpt also looks great. You have some really nice finer scales there in between the toes, but a nice larger kind of scoot-like appearance down the toes. Again, the nails are also painted really nicely, and once again given a dry brushing just like we saw in the hands. The dew claws are present and painted as well. The sculpt on this is actually really nice aside from the pose, and the actual paint job is incredibly nicely done. Some more osteoderm-like scoots that run down the tail. You can also pick up on this really nice striping effect that runs down the tail. You have some more skin detail right there that looks really, really good as far as the way that the body would be reacting right there. You can see how nice that kind of striping is here with that brown and gray mixture as we move down the back right there. You can also see some more really nice detailing right here in this kind of bend of the tail where you can see like the skin scrunching up and everything right there, which is exactly how it would be reacting, but stretching nicely on this side. And then as we move out the length of the tail, you can see it does have a pretty dramatic curve to it because the dinosaur is actually kind of laying back on its tail. So that's pretty much exactly what would be happening with the tail if it were kind of squishing the tail down that way. And then moving up on this side again, you can see that really nice striping effect here on the tail. The nice osteoderms, again, that kind of bumpy appearance to the spinal column of the dinosaur. You do have the hip bone present once again, and the leg is almost in exactly the same position over here, except it's just stretched out a little further, I would say, than what we saw on the previous side, but you can again really see how muscular the dinosaur's legs are. Just tons of muscle tone that you can see the entire way up and down that leg sculpt. Very large bulging calf muscles again, but the thigh specifically is extremely muscular, and they've done a very good job of showing that in the sculpt. You do have the kneecap again, very nice foot sculpt over here, and I love the way that the figure is painted. That foot sculpt really kind of pops due to that nice dark wash that they've given it. Really beautiful work there. And then coming up here, you can again see the rib cage and everything. Very nice skin folding and skin wrinkling going on. The underside as well looks incredible as far as the sculpt work goes. I love the scale work all over the figure. It just looks incredibly nice. As you move up here, you have almost like a crocodilian type scaling right here in the chest area. As we move up here into the upper part of the chest, that looks really nice as well. And then you have the arm sculpt over here, which looks just as beautiful as it did on the previous side, even if his arms are in almost a ridiculous-like position, like he's trying to scare us. But overall, even though it's in somewhat of a bad pose for what we would have wanted, the figure is extremely nicely done in both the very fine detailing and paint job. As far as a size goes, it's definitely a decently sized figure. So for a height, you are going to see the Giganotosaurus come in at about the 7-inch range. Actually, if we go back here behind the head, you can see it a little better. If we move the camera up, I guess you really can't see it too much because it kind of blocks it right there. But it is about the 7-inch range or around the 19 centimeter area. There's not really going to be too much otherwise that we can measure like length or anything because that's pretty much the same thing as the height at this point. So for a size comparison, we have the Attack Pack Colovosaurus Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line and the Papo T-Rex, who is also a tripod figure because they do tend to like these tripod positions. But you can see it's now the attack of the tripods right here with both the Rex and the Giganotosaurus, but you should have a pretty good idea that the Giganotosaurus is definitely a pretty darn nicely sized figure. It is a little taller than the Papo Rex, although I feel like the Papo Rex might have a little bit more bulk to it than what we see on the Giganotosaurus right here, but definitely a really cool figure, I think, to include in dioramas. Maybe not with the Papo Rex because it's just not positioned correctly, but I feel like if you got a very good dinosaur to include in this, the diorama effect could work quite well. And here is the Giganotosaurus with the new Papo Parasaurolophus, which will be coming up for review here on the channel very soon. But sort of trying to kind of give you an idea of what I mean with the diorama possibilities. With this moment right here, you can kind of see like the Giganotosaurus looks like he's sort of rearing up to take a large bite down onto the Parasaurolophus right here. So some things like this I feel like could potentially work fairly well with this Giganotosaurus as far as its pose goes. So this Papo 2020 Giganotosaurus, the very first Papo 2020 figure that we get to take a look at here on the channel, is actually quite nice and way nicer than I thought it would be. And it is actually kind of exciting to have the Giganotosaurus in such a different pose because most often we just kind of get it in a walking pose. So even though I was kind of sour on the figure initially, I've definitely warmed up to it a bit, and the entire idea behind it kind of giving us just a different look at a Giganotosaurus, even though again I would love to have a more accurate looking Giganotosaurus as far as like a pose goes, because I'm not even sure a Giganotosaurus could pull this off. Maybe in mid battle or something it could potentially pull something like this off, but I'm not too sure. Just standing alone like this, I don't know how well a Giganotosaurus could pull this off without injuring itself. But again, if you are looking for even an old school variation of a Giganotosaurus, this is actually an excellent version of that. And I am a huge fan of the vintage look. I just kind of didn't really want a vintage look with their Giganotosaurus. But even still, I think, again, with the pose that it's in, giving us just that different look at a Giganotosaurus and really giving you a pretty good chance at some nice display options as far as like dioramas go, it's still a very appealing figure. And if you actually get down to the fine detailing of the figure, it is extremely nicely done, beautifully sculpted in every possible way. There's just so much detail to the figure to be found, and it is really well done as per usual when it comes to Papo. The paintwork as well is top-notch, and I love the paint scheme they've given the figure. It actually is a very nice natural look overall, and I think they've done a great job of adding in so many different variations of colors and just dry brushing certain areas and just overall giving it an absolutely beautiful look as far as the paint job goes. The paint job is definitely my favorite part of the figure, but the sculpt itself as far as the fine detailing is really quite nicely done as well. The only downside, honestly, to the figure is the pose, and that's really just depending on how you look at it. Again, having this new kind of mindset that I have as far as display options go with like a diorama maybe facing off against some sort of other dinosaur, it actually could be really cool to have this type of a look for a Giganotosaurus, but fingers crossed they'll give us another one to maybe add in some sort of a diorama that the two Giganotosaurus are fighting so that this kind of pose here makes a little more sense to us. But regardless, still a really cool figure, so I will include a link in the description to everythingdinosaur.com where I purchased mine, so you can purchase yours. So head on over there, make sure you click that link, buy yourself a Papo Giganotosaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.